Every day, the future's getting closer.
Welcome to Master the NEC, where we talk about the National Electrical Code and all things electrically related. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host, and welcome to today's podcast. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Master the NEC, where we talk about the National Electrical Code and all things electrically related. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host as always. Welcome to the podcast. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about another change that looks like it's going to make it through for the 2020 National Electrical Code. We just got back from the NITMAMs, CAM, Certified Amending Motions. It was voted on. And it passed in moving forward. Now, what we're talking about is an expansion. I guess it's not an expansion. It's a change to 210.8a for dwelling units when it comes to GFCI protection. Now, we have a list of items in this list, and there is, in the 2017 code, there is 10 items. In the 2020 code, there's going to be 11 items. So you're going to see the advent of, for dwelling units, also indoor damp and wet locations that's going to require GFCI protection. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about what happened in the CAM. So the CAM that we're talking about in that Certified Amending Motion is 70-8, and it is based on, the actual motion is based on second revision 7697, and it has parts of first revisions 8119 and 7705 incorporated into it. And they're rejecting to an identifiable part of the second revision, which was to move the item number 5 for dwelling units be moved from what it was in the 2017 code, which it did move, into the second revision, which changed it to basements in general. So in the 2017 code, you might be familiar with the language where it says that unfinished portions, which was new language in 2017, unfinished portions or areas of the basement not intended as a habitable room. Didn't have to, okay? So in those unfinished portions of a basement that were not identified as habitable rooms, utility area, storage area, whatever, had to be GFCI protected. Okay. If it was a finished area, it didn't require it. It was just like anywhere. It's like the living room of your house. It's just an area. Well, it went through the public input, came to the second revision, I guess through public comment, and they changed it to require that all 125 volt through 250 volt receptacles that are installed in basements had to be GFCI protected. The only exception to this rule was for fire alarm and burglar alarm. Okay, if there's receptacles serving that. So in this application, it applies to every receptacle, 125 volts through 250 volts, that are being supplied by a single-phase branch circuit where it's 150 volts or less to ground. So 120, 240, 240 still one phase is 120 volts to ground. It would apply. So it was very broad-reaching for this application. All right, and so we were at the NITMAMs, and so the motion was to reverse it back to really, I believe, what the language was in the 2017 National Electrical Code, and let it be determined by the unfinished portion or area, and that it was not intended for as a habitable room. So it was a good debate. People brought up flooding. People brought up all this kind of stuff. And reality is, I could have a house on a slab and it's concrete floor, and nowadays a lot of people are finishing off that textured, or it might even be pigmented finished flooring. It's the slab, and it's getting used a lot, and it's still slab on grade. So a lot of the arguments was about the grade, like in garages, like in the basements, it's concrete, it's unfinished, standing on it could be an issue, and blah, blah, blah. If it's not finished, what constitutes finished versus unfinished? Do you have to have floor material down and wall material up, like gypsum board and a ceiling? And they thought that it brought so much confusion that, let's just say, do the whole basement. Now, personally, this is the only time I'll interject an opinion here on this one. I kind of knew what an unfinished portion was. I was okay with the floors being of concrete. I don't really have a problem with that. It was the finished wall material and the finished ceiling that, to me, constitute the finished place versus unfinished. I never, in my opinion, as a jurisdiction, that's what we do. We have to interpret things what we feel. And due to the fact that there's a lot of unfinished floors in the basement, that's not really a determination of it being unfinished. That's just that's somebody designed. That's what they wanted. That's a style choice. As long as the walls were finished off and the ceiling was finished off, we would constitute that, whether or not it was a concrete slab or not, that was a finished off space. Now, there's plenty of people, especially out in Texas now, who are getting grade homes where their dwelling is on grade, on slab, and they're using the concrete floor. It's being texturized, colored, whatever, and glossed, and it's a concrete slab. And no GFCI requirements are there for that. So there was an argument back and forth, and I was like, this might be a little bit overreaching. But regardless of opinions on it, in the 2020 code, it's the motion was presented, and it failed. And so it is going to require GFCI protections in basements. Now, there's an exception again for fire alarm or burglar alarm receptacle. Okay. I interpret that to be personally a simplex specifically for this application of fire alarm or burglar alarm. We'll let others debate that if they want. I don't care what they want to debate. And so the change here again was it's just going to be all 125 volt through 250 volt receptacles that are supplied by single phase branch circuits, 150 volts or less to ground, are all going to have to be protected by GFCI ground fault circuit interrupter protection for personnel. Whether you do it at a receptacle, might be more difficult with the 50 amp application if that's what you've got in your basement, but obviously doable with a circuit breaker or what have you. So at any rate, that's what's passed. That's what went forward. Now, I do have a problem. The only problem I'm going to vent this, and I'm probably going to get some people who hate this, is that I don't like when manufacturers go up to the mic and make such a passionate plea for safety about death and all this when they have a monetary interest in it. I'd rather see people like the fire marshals or fire service people or safety advocates doing this, or somebody for the Consumer Product Safety Commission, or even NFPA, or somebody advocating for it versus somebody that stands to monetarily gain from it. I know we have to do it, and I get it, especially if we put the motion in. I get it. But don't act like you're about ready to cry. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's what it is, and that's what it is. I guess that's why some people don't like me. I'm blunt, and I say it how it is, and I'm not there to kiss anybody's butt. I'm just not. It's not how I roll. Like me or hate me, you get what you get. And at least Monday through Friday, you'll know what you're going to get every time you encounter me, the same person. I don't flip-flop on that. So anyway, that is what it is. So for the 2020 change, GFCI protection is now going to be required in basements for dwelling units, whether it's 125 through 250 volt receptacles that are located in the basements are going to require it. So there's your code change for the 2020. Now, people ask me, why am I talking 2020 when we're still on 2017 around the country? Because, dude, you got to be aware of what's coming up. You got to inform yourself. Knowledge is king. So you have to always be in the forefront of what's coming along so that you don't get left behind. And that's why we do some of these episodes. Anyway, there's plenty of episodes on the 17 code or even the 14 code you can go back and listen to if this didn't tickle your fancy. So until next time, folks, stay safe, God bless, and share these episodes, share our videos, visit our website, masterthenec.com. We thank you for all the kudos we get and the messages and emails. I read every one of them. I read every one. And I want to thank you. Again, another month we've gone over 300,000 unique listeners to our podcast through all the syndicated, through all the platforms that we launch it on. I want to thank you for that. Until next time, folks. So remember, stay safe and God bless.
Every day, the future's getting closer. Every day, the future's looking bright. Every day is another beginning.